Yeah, it's running. What do you want? Anything, please. Yes, please. Thank. Hello, welcome to part two of the Ducati project. I'm shooting this after the next footage you're going to see, so I've done it a bit backwards. So bear with me. There's a few. I'm learning as we go here with the video and cover. Uh, Welcome back to part two. This it's been a bit of a crazy week, to be honest, and I'm shooting this after the other part of the video you're going to watch shortly. So I've done it a bit backwards. Bear with me. For those that follow the racing, I've just early this week basically lost my ride for TT. So the next few weeks are going to be extremely busy trying to put all that back on track and get sorted out. And I may do a video on that and how it's all going and where we're going with that. But so keep an eye on the socials on updates for there. But back to the Ducati. At the end of the last video, it wasn't running. It wouldn't start. The battery went dead for the final time, and I just kind of left it there. Recharged the battery. I knew I had compression. I knew the timing was right. A few people noticed the timing markers were out, but it was just the way it looked in the video. It was out at the point of putting the tensioner on, but I readjusted the timing once the tensioner was on. It's a little bit fiddly without that tool I mentioned to lock everything in place. Anyway, I 100% timing was bang on. There was a spark, so to me it was a fueling issue. The spark plugs were dry but sparking. So something I didn't get on film was I took the throttle bodies off and completely doused everything I could get with carburetor cleaner and brake cleaner and blew it all out with the airline. Refitted with a fresh battery the next day, and that's kind of where the next bit of the video picks up from. So thanks for all the comments and suggestions, but we're sorted, and you'll see that in a moment. So in this next part, you'll see a few other small issues I have with building up the rest of the bike, but we're all looking fairly good now, and as you can see, the sun's shining. So I'm excited. It's perfect timing to get this bike running. So as you can hear, she's running pretty sweetly. I wanted to get quite a few heat cycles through it really. You can see the condensation on the inside of the spyglass there for the oil level. I think that is just where it's been stood for so long. The condensation has built up inside the crankcases. So I wanted to get the engine as hot and warm over and over. There's one problem here, was the battery lights was showing illuminated on the dash there. You can see the temperature's up. Even when I increased the revs, I was hoping the higher revs would generate more power and put that battery light out, but wasn't the case. So those that know the Ducati, they are prone to the regulator rectifier failing. So although it didn't quite make sense because I was getting voltage here, and an increase, I probably want a little bit more than that on idle, but I did think that mid to high 13s was okay with increased revs, but it clearly wasn't enough to put that battery light out. But I will come back to that. Toolkit is essential, I think, especially on an old Italian motorcycle. This was a very vital, important addition to keep in there. Fitting the seat unit back on, I can't really explain how simple and functional this is. It's a double hinge system at the front there with some small plastic pins, which are rubber capped, so not even any screws or bolts to hold it on. And then it obviously locks in, locates with the locking mechanism at the back, and a simple mounted plug there for the rear brake light. Once that was all back in place, I run the engine up again for another heat cycle and tested the brake light switch, or the brake lights were operating correctly, which they were from the foot pedal, the rear brake. They weren't being illuminated by the front brake lever, so I didn't film this, but removed the switch behind the brake lever on the front and gave it a bit of service, some lubrication, and got it back working fine. And then, as you can see, a super quick shine up with the bodywork I'd fitted. Next was to replace the headlights and front air ducts. I'd stripped these air duct. The foam filter inside there was actually in good condition. I gave them a blowout with the airline and some air filter spray to keep them sticky and catch any dirt or dust trying to get through them. And the headlights I'd stripped as well. Again, I didn't film this, but I removed all what I could from the headlight. And those who have dealt with Ducatis know that over time they can kind of mist up a little bit on the inside, which was bugging me, and I wanted it to be right. So cleaned all those up nice and just to keep it looking as sweet and shiny as possible. Now, something I had missed here was the fact I had to remove the fuel tank again to fix these air ducts in. They clip in inside the airbox, or airbox base plate, whatever you want to call it, as you can see here. So I had to remove the tank again to do this, which was a little bit, I mean, it's only one bolt, so it wasn't a big problem, but not ideal, but lesson learned, and I know for the future. But I will say, where that rear seat, where the seat unit is on a kind of double hinge, I could kind of undo it and set it back to access the bolt. And you'll see in a minute I can lift the seat, fold it kind of forward on itself, and clip it back in. So it really wasn't much of a job, just put me back a tiny bit. Now to start putting the front and nose fairing on around the headlights. It really brings the bike's identity back here. It's certainly starting to come together. I'm not a big fan of that bigger screen, and I have ordered black mirrors and a standard original screen, which weren't particularly cheap, but I want it to look right, so I will change those at a later date. The mirrors are a bit fiddly. They have the shear bolts on, so I was careful not to over tighten those. So before I fitted the new battery and put the side panel back on, I wanted to check the connections here. Anyone who's worked on these, possibly owned one of these old Ducatis, will know they're prone to connection issues down here from the stator over into the regulator rectifier. So I was just double checking all these terminals and the state of the cables. I added a bit of insulation tape there just to hold the plugs in nicely and keep it good for my own sanity, really, just to make sure this wasn't or couldn't have been any cause to that battery light being on the dash. So after fitting the new battery and fiddling around with those connections, I wanted to run the bike again. It was an excuse for another heat cycle, but also to check this charging issue. When it starts there, using the faster idle button, you can see the battery light is still on. So I knew there was a problem with the regulator rectifier and went on to order a new one. But fitted the panels up anyway. It's literally
5 Zeus fasteners to fit it on, and I just wanted to see the bike all complete and await the delivery of the new regulator. This was a little bit of wizardry to slide the left-hand side fairing over the kickstand by myself. It would definitely have been easier to have the bike on a paddock stand here, but I didn't manage to do it without damaging the fairing or dropping the bike, so all good. Then a final polish up with the muck off speed polish. So a couple of days later, I had the bike back in the house, and the new regulator rectifier arrived along with some other parts I'd ordered from Rich at Luigi Moto. He's been quite a good help actually with this little project. Very knowledgeable guy, but not too much to strip off here. It was I've had all this off a few times already. So I completely removed the old system. I had to make a small bracket up to locate. The holes didn't quite line up on the new regulator rectifier to the mount on the bike, so I made a small aluminium plate for this. I didn't actually really show that in the video here in the footage, but a little bit of wiring involved and termination. I actually used to be an electrician, for those that don't know that. I suppose I still sort of am an electrician, and I might have to go back to it the way things are at the moment. But so yeah, this is anyone needing to do this. It's really quite straightforward. There's certain Ducati models do vary a little bit, but this earlier bike has the 2 yellow cables coming from the stator. This regulator has a facility for 3, but one of them just basically remains void. So only 2 to terminate, although I did terminate all 3 and put the third one in the middle between the other 2 on the plug you'll see in a minute, because you can see in the background there the male plug on the bike. These cables from the stator can get quite hot, so I thought my logic was to keep them as far away from each other as possible. All terminated nicely there, soldered in. I wanted to get these connections and terminations as strong as possible, because a weak connection causes greater resistance, and that generates heat, which then leads on to other problems. Five wires on that new regulator, the 3 yellow, 1 I didn't need, and then the green and red there just collect onto the positive and negative on the battery, which you'll see in a moment. Don't judge me on that terminal. That is literally the last 2 I had in my box, so I've put the open-ended one on the neutral side, on the negative side. And then some small zip ties just to tidy the wires up and keep them nicely in, and probably a little bit of OCD, but I like to use a Stanley blade there or the flush cuts to tidy the ends or cuts on zip ties. super flush, so they're just nice and clean. They're not going to snag on anything. Obviously carefully your fingers, but finishes the job nicely, all tidy, done and ready to test. And you can see now the voltage on idle is not massively higher than it was, but as soon as I increase the revs it jumps right up, so much better. One thing with this regulator rectifier upgrade or replacement is it actually does away with that battery light anyway, so the light would have gone off regardless, but I'm not going to get caught out here with the battery dying on me, well hopefully not anyway. It should be all good and ready for our first ride.
Okay, we're good to go. I hope you've enjoyed that little bit of the journey. There was a few issues to rectify: the brake lights and the charging. We've sorted the non-starting. She's on the button now, and lovely, good to go. So I'm going to head out for my first ride. I'm heading over firstly to Crescent Yamaha in Verwood for an MOT. She should pass, and then I'm going to go out for a ride. And I've got the Insta 360 helmet camera mount rigged up with the Cardo headset into microphone system. So fingers crossed I've got all that working, and I'm going to talk while I'm riding and capture those first few moments of riding this new bike. So let's head out. Make sure you subscribe, please, for part 3, which will be the riding video. And as I mentioned with the racing, I may do something on that coming up. So keep your eyes peeled. Thanks for watching. See you all soon.